These are survivors.
That's not at all what I said.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask you this in a second, but let me tell you about the survivors, and let's bring them up here into the room. These are women who came to the Hill and testified that they were groomed and raped at the age of 14 and 16 years old, and they called to meet with the president and to meet with the FBI and to have people investigate their claims. Some of them have never testified before. If you are so interested in getting the public to submit any information, why have you not met with them? You said you haven't met with them. Have you met with them? I'll give you one more chance.
My job as the FBI director is to invite all investigative leads. Is the answer yes or no to whether or not you met with these women who were sexually abused and raped? Any insinuation by you or any people on your side that I am not manhunting child predators and sex traffickers, just look at the stats. And you talk about cover-ups, man.
Mr. Chairman,
you talk about cover-ups.
And I will take as much time as
Where were you during the Obama and Biden administrations when these so-called cover-ups were going on? Why didn't anyone in those administrations talk to any of these purported witnesses? I have
some regular order,
every single person to provide credible information.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Washington.
And I'm going to take another couple of minutes.
When you accuse the witness of something, he's allowed.
I never thought I would see an FBI director literally trembling. But 4 minutes ago, in a House Judiciary Committee hearing room packed to capacity with cameras from every major television network pointed at the witness table, Washington's 7th District Representative Pramila Jayapal asked a question so pointed that when Kash Patel reached for his glass of water, his hand was visibly shaking. "Director Patel," she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried something dangerous. "How many names in the Epstein files were personally redacted by you? Not by your staff, not by the classification team. I'm talking about the ones you personally hid." You could hear a pin drop in the room. It was that kind of silence, the kind where you can hear the hum of the air conditioning and the cameras refocusing automatically. Because everyone in that room understood what the question really meant. It meant Jayapal had proof, and Patel knew it. You could see it on his face. Let's rewind to how this began. The date was January 22nd, 2026, a House Judiciary Committee oversight hearing. Supposedly a routine day. FBI budget, cybersecurity updates, maybe a few debates about immigration enforcement, the familiar congressional theater in Washington. Republicans praise Patel, Democrats criticize him. Everyone reads prepared remarks and then goes home. But this time, that didn't happen. That day, Pramila Jayapal walked into the hearing room carrying a thin blue folder. I noticed it immediately. Jayapal doesn't usually bring folders into hearings. She's known for her memory. She can quote testimony from months earlier without looking at notes. That folder meant documents. It meant evidence. Who is Pramila Jayapal? Describing Pramila Jayapal simply as a congresswoman who asks tough questions would be a serious understatement. Jayapal is one of the rare members of Congress known for her discipline with files and her command of documents. Born in India, she immigrated to the United States at a young age. She studied English language and literature at Georgetown University. She does not have a law degree, yet she is widely regarded on Capitol Hill as someone who can outread, outanalyze, and outreference many trained attorneys. Jayapal did not begin her career as a politician. She started as a civil rights advocate and an immigration justice activist. For years in Washington state, she worked directly on issues of human rights, freedom of expression, and government transparency. Before entering Congress, she worked on the ground, face-to-face with victims, listening to testimony, documenting harm. That background matters. Because when witness statements, sealed files, and buried reports come up in Congress, Jayapal approaches them not as abstractions, but with practical, lived seriousness. Her reputation on the Judiciary Committee comes from 3 simple rules. She never raises her voice, she never performs for spectacle, and she never speaks without documents in hand. There is a saying about her in congressional corridors. If Jayapal opens a folder, that folder has already been verified. She often enters hearings without notes, recalling dates, signatures, and prior testimony word for word. Bureaucrats in particular grow tense when her turn comes because Jayapal doesn't ask questions to get answers. She asks questions that force them. And perhaps most importantly, for Jayapal, the issue is never partisanship. It is not about who holds power, but whose voice has been silenced. The blue folder in her hand that day was not a political maneuver. It was the physical representation of witnesses who had waited for years, testimonies that had been buried, and truths that had been sealed away. That is why the question she asked was not directed only at Kash Patel, but at the entire system. The first 2 hours of the hearing proceeded as expected. Republicans asked about FBI successes. Democrats raised civil liberties concerns. Patel spoke in that familiar, polished bureaucratic language, answers that sounded transparent but said nothing. Then it was Jayapal's turn. "Director Patel," she said, slowly opening the blue folder. "I want to discuss the Epstein investigation files that were released last month." The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The word Epstein always does that. But this time was different. There was no anger, no theatrics. She spoke like a surgeon who knows exactly where she is about to cut. Patel shifted slightly in his chair. "Congresswoman," he said, "as you know, we have provided unprecedented transparency regarding those files. Over 1,200 pages of previously classified material were released." "That's not what I asked," Jayapal said. The interruption was flawless. She never raised her voice because she didn't need to. "I didn't ask about the files you released," she said. "I asked about the files you redacted, the files you personally kept hidden." That was the moment everything changed. The 3 lawyers seated directly behind Patel all leaned forward at the exact same time. It looked like a choreographed panic. "Congresswoman," Patel said, his voice steady, but his right hand sliding toward the edge of the table. "I do not personally make redaction decisions on individual documents. Those decisions are handled by career classification specialists." Jayapal pulled a single sheet of paper from the folder and raised it high enough for the cameras to see. FBI letterhead, classification stamps, official seal. "This," she said, holding up the document, "is an internal FBI memorandum, dated November 3rd, 2025. Subject line, Classification Review Override Authority." She paused. Then she put on reading glasses. Jayapal never wears glasses during hearings. Never. The glasses meant she was about to read verbatim. Upon review of the Epstein investigation document release, FBI Director Kash Patel has personally flagged 47 witness testimony files for permanent classification override. These files contain direct testimony naming individuals in positions of significant political and financial influence. Standard declassification protocols have been suspended pending the director's personal authorization. She looked up. "Signed by your Deputy Director of Counterintelligence." The room erupted, not literally, but close. Whispers rippled through the gallery. Journalists were hammering their keyboards. Republican members glanced at one another. Patel's face changed 3 times in about 5 seconds. First, shock that she had the memo. Second, calculation. Third, something that looked very much like fear. "This document is being taken out of context," Patel began. "Then put it in context," Jayapal said. Her voice was ice. "Explain to me and to the American people why you personally blocked the release of 47 witness testimonies tied to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. 47 witnesses, Director. 47 people who came forward, named names, and you decided the public would never hear them." Patel fell back on bureaucratic language, national security, ongoing investigations, witness protection protocols. "I didn't ask about those," Jayapal said. "This memo says you flagged them. You suspended standard protocols, so I am asking directly, what are you hiding?" This was no longer implication. It was a direct accusation. Patel's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No answer came. That silence, there, in front of the room, the cameras, and millions watching, said everything.
If you want to see what happens next, subscribe now. The documents are released tomorrow. And this story does not end here.